Hi guys, Lori here. I'm here today to do my May reading wrap up. I'm dividing this reading wrap up into two parts because I did read about 20 books. I just want to say again that I do support Black Lives Matter. This is a safe space for all involved. I am personally trying to educate myself and reading a lot of books that are outside my comfort zone, and you guys will see that in subsequent videos going forward. I'm in the middle of reading three nonfiction books that I hope to do a wrap up review of you guys in the future. But yeah, I just wanted to state that outright. But I am trying to be a little bit more proactive to follow, to really educate myself about what's going on in the world. I also, as much as I love Harry Potter, I do not stand with J.K. Rowling against the transphobic comments she made against the trans community. Um, so that is my thoughts on that. I am also going to try my hardest to support creators and companies that support these initiatives and don't detract from them. But I did actually wind up having a pretty good reading month in the month of May. This is going to focus on the first 10 books that I read, and then next we'll focus on the other 10 books that I read. But yeah, let's get into it. The first book that I finished reading was an ARC that I got from ALA, but I heard about it at BEA, and it's They Wish They Were Us. That exciting cover that I have. The actual cover is much nicer. But this is a mystery thriller. It basically follows this girl named Jill. It takes place on Long Island, which is really, really fun because I live on Long Island. But they basically go to a prep school, and there is a murder the summer before that it kind of impacts them because they're all part of this club, and there's someone that's in jail. And this whole book is kind of like trying to untangle what really happened with that murder and if the person who's in jail is really the one that did it. So it's kind of like a present and past. You see the present elements and then you see the past elements. I will admit it wasn't as fast paced as I would like, but they really did tackle a lot of topics that I did enjoy. It was definitely interesting. I wouldn't say it was my favorite thriller that I read. I definitely like this book and the main character a lot more than the main characters in All Your Twisted Secrets. But it wasn't my favorite, but I did like it. I just wish the pacing was a little bit more thrilling, I'll say. But I really did like the past and present, and I really like Long Island as a setting because I grew up on Long Island and I live on Long Island. So I'm giving this book 4 stars, and I would actually recommend you check it out when it comes out in August. It did have a lot of elements that were kind of interesting, but it dealt with like friendship dynamics and an exclusive club. The school that they lived at reminded me a lot of my college, like the setting, like how it looks. So wound up giving this book 4 stars, and this was the first read that I tackled in the month of May. But yeah, definitely check this out when it comes out in August. This is also another book that I got pushed. I think it was supposed to come out in July, now it's coming out in August. The next book I read was one that I was so excited to get an e-arc of, and that is Majesty by Katharine McGee. This comes out in September, I think. I wound up adoring this book. I really did like American Royals. Like I wound up giving that book like 4.5 stars, but this book I adored. I'm really curious if we're actually getting another book in this series because like the ending was pretty much like a nice conclusion, but I could also see getting like a side book based on some other things that happened at the end. This book just dived into all of the characters and relationships, and it was so funny because at the start of the book I had very mixed feelings about all like the relationships that were present, and by the end I was invested in them all. So like it was a really really nice book that kind of like I kind of changed my feelings throughout this whole read, and I really wound up liking it. I think that like all the romances and the development of the relationships were really interesting. There was a lot of sister dynamics. It was just great. Like I had a hard time putting this book down, and it was great. I really love the concept of it, like a woman queen, but I also liked how it really did tackle how scary that is for the general population, as in America we saw recently and have been dealing with for quite a few years. But I just love the characters. They're so different. I love that we got four very, very strong point of views. Um, it was great. I highly recommend if you've not checked out American Royals to pick it up this summer so you'll be ready for this book in September. But this book was really, really, really great. I definitely need to read Catherine McGee's other series. I have it on my Kindle. I just haven't got around to it yet. But this book definitely impressed me, and I really hope that you consider checking out when it comes out in September. But again, it's a perfect beach read, or summer read, I'll say, because some people can't go to the beaches right now. But thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed it, and hope you'll consider checking it out. The next book I'm going to chat about is another arc that I got from ALA, and this is The 4 Days of Me and You by Miranda Kennelly. This book had a very interesting premise, and I actually wound up really enjoying it. This book basically follows Lulu and Alex, and you see them one day every single year. So you see them like one day freshman year, one day sophomore year, one day junior year, and one day senior year. And it always takes place on their, like, every year they have a trip that they go to, so you kind of follow them every single year and you kind of see the development of their relationship. I love this book. For number one, I love books that feature travel, and there was a lot of traveling in this book, which was great. I love slow burn storylines so much, and I just loved it. I also love the side characters. I just was really invested in this book. I love the dynamics of the characters, and it was fun. I also really liked, in addition to like seeing them on one day or like in one experience, you also did kind of flash back to moments that kind of led up to it. So like you would see them in the present, and then they would talk about stuff, and you would kind of float back only to those moments. So it was a cool structured novel that I don't think I ever read, and I really enjoyed that. Because I didn't feel like out of sorts like with this novel. I didn't feel like I was like confused because she was really good at crafting it. I did buddy read this with someone, one of my friends, and she said she thought the relationship was a little bit codependent. I didn't really feel that way, but just going in that may be a trigger for some people, or that may be a reason some people may not like it. I didn't feel that way because I felt like after 4 years with someone, it's natural to kind of want to stay near them. But I wound up really, really liking it. I've only ever read one Miranda Kennelly book before, that was Catching Jordan. I liked it. I didn't love it. This book really did impress me, and I really, really liked it. I also thought the side characters were so fun, and I just like the LGBTQ elements in this book as well. But yeah, wound up really, 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 really liking it, and I would highly recommend if you check it out. This is a perfect love to hate romance, also a lot of travel elements, and it was just super fun. So really, really enjoyed it, and I wound up giving this book 4.5 stars as well. I thought the ending was a little bit rushed, but that was really my only complaint with that. And then the next book I am going to chat about is one of my highly anticipated books that was on one of my lists, and it's Five Dark Fates by Kendare Blake. This is the final book in the Queens of Fenburn series. I wound up adoring this book. I thought it was so well done. It was definitely a game changer in the world. I just love these characters so much, and it was just really, really well done. I was really invested in it, and I just love where this book went. It's definitely a series that I would recommend if you haven't picked it up to read it closer together than I did, because I feel like I missed some key information because I really spread out my reading journey. But I wound up liking it. I thought this was a great conclusion to this series. And again, it really focused on friendship and, sister dynamics. But I also really enjoyed the magic system. And I wound up giving this book 4.5 stars. This was another one that I really, really flew through because I wanted to know what happened. But again, another really, really strong read that I wound up really, really enjoying. So, big points for Five Dark Fates, and I will definitely be reading more by Kendare Blake in the future. The next book that I am going to chat about is another arc that I got from ALA, and that's Say Yes Summer by Lindsay Roth Cully. This is a book that I was featured along with The 4 Days of Me and You. Was featured on my contemporary-a-thon that I'm kind of challenging myself to read this summer. I wound up liking this book. I didn't wind up loving this book, but I think the only reason was because it was so short, and I had a hard time feeling really invested in the characters. But it does have like a blast from the past romance, a blast from the past friendship. It kind of reminded me a little bit of The Mall that I read earlier this year. But it basically follows this girl named Rachel, and she is like very, very focused on what she wants. But she decides, like, after after she graduates, she's going to kind of take a summer to say yes to everything, because she's always kind of been a little bit reserved in doing everything because she was very, very set on her goal. But it kind of doesn't go the way that she expects it to. And her list making and her saying yes to everything kind of changes her in like an interesting way. It was a very, very fun read, just a fun beach read. I don't think it was super memorable. The characters I don't really remember, but I wound up liking it. I didn't wind up loving it. And I've read books with kind of this concept before. Like Say You'll Wish Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson. Just a similar concepts, like a list or like, challenging yourself. So I liked it. I didn't love it, but I would still read more by this author in the future. I liked it. I didn't love it. Didn't really impress me, but it was fun. If you're looking for a super quick beach read, this was like not even 300 pages. Check it out. And then the next book I'm going to chat about is one that really took me by surprise, and that is More Than Just a Pretty Fate by Syed Mastoon. This is one that actually got pushed. It didn't get pushed. It's coming out in August. But I wound up adoring this book. Like, I did not expect to like it so much, but it basically follows two characters, and I think that they're Muslim. That's what I'm going off, but I know the author is Pakistani. But it basically follows this guy named Danelle, and he is kind of a class clown. His parents are very set on finding someone for him to marry, as the same in Muslim culture, and he kind of, that's not what he wants to do. That's not his jam. That's not his focus. He's very set on being with one girl because that's who he's loved her forever. But his paths crosses with a girl named Bisma, and she kind of comes from like a different kind of past. She had some troubles in her past. It literally says it, but she had an issue with another boy, and there was a sex tape that got out. So that's kind of one relationship that's developing. Her parents are trying to set her up with him, but they don't know the aftermath of her past. But then there's also another element called a Renaissance Man competition, where he has to basically compete to be like the winner in this competition. But no one has a whole lot of faith in him, even his teacher. And he kind of falls down a path of like kind of researching Winston Churchill and his behavior towards people of like his culture. And it was just really, really well done. I learned a lot about Muslim culture in this book. And the one thing I really liked about it is you follow 3 young men in this read, and they're so different in regards to their feelings about religion. It was really captivating. It was a book that really challenged me because I really learned a lot about the Muslim culture in this book. And as a teacher, I work with, like, my school has a lot of Muslim students and families in it. And I've seen these situations a lot, like people not respecting the arts. He really wants to be a chef, but his parents don't think that that's like an acceptable profession. And I've seen that so much in the kids that I work with. Their parents don't see the arts as a viable profession. As a theater teacher, I have to deal with that quite a bit. But I just wound up really, really liking it. This is right when all of the protests started, and learning about like other cultures, I think, is just really important. It was something that I wound up really enjoying, and I wound up giving this book like 4.5 stars. I thought I just really, really wound up liking it, and I would definitely read more by this author in the future. Because I've been home, I did wind up picking up some anthologies, and this is the last one I'm going to read that is not nonfiction. But I've heard great things about the Hungry Hearts anthology, and I wound up picking it up. I've actually wound up really enjoying this book. Sometimes anthologies are sort of hit and miss. This one I thought was very, very well crafted. It basically follows 13 stories that is all set on this row of restaurants. And every restaurant is kind of like a different nationality, so some of the characters kind of float back and forth. But I liked it. I wound up finding a lot of authors that I've never read before, and I just wound up enjoying it. I think some of my highlight stories that I wound up reading, I really wound up liking Rain, The Great Ishik Adventure, The Slender One, Sidewalk, and Hearts a la carte. And it was good. I wound up liking the concept of this one, and it was great. If you're looking for kind of an anthology that has a lot to do with food, but also kind of an interesting structure, I'd recommend this one. I definitely found some authors that I'm definitely going to put in my TBR in the future. And then after this, I wound up moving on to the Nasty Women anthology, which I'm still in the middle of reading, which I'll probably finish in early July, hopefully. But overall, I mean, some stories didn't wow me, but overall, I wound up giving the anthology like 4 stars. And the last book I have 2 more books I'm going to talk about in this video. But the next book I am going to chat about is How to Love by Katie Cotugno. This book was also featured in my Contemporary-a-thon that I'm sort of challenging myself. I will admit, I didn't love this book. I really struggled with the characters in this book. And I think it was because it was told from then and now perspectives, and I wasn't the biggest fan of like the relationship in the past. So this book does deal with the aftermath of teen pregnancy. So you basically follow Rena and Sawyer in the past that leads up to her getting pregnant. And then you follow her 2 years later when her baby daddy returns to town and kind of the aftermaths of that. This book is set in Florida. I really didn't like their relationship in the beginning part of this book, so I had to it took me a while to buy into it. It was a very unhealthy relationship. There was a lot of issues going on and a lot of choices that I'm just like, oh my goodness, you should not be doing that. Oh my goodness, you should not be doing that. And it's really hard as a reader because we know what happens because we know she gets pregnant. So you're just kind of waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And the after was hard because it was really hard for me to buy into that relationship, knowing what I knew about Sawyer and Rena in the first part. So I liked it. I didn't love it. I think I still prefer her other book, which she just came out with. Oh my god, what's the name of it? You Say It First by Katie. You Say It First. I wound up loving that book. This book I liked. I didn't love it. I only wound up giving it 3 stars, and I definitely probably won't read it again. But it was one that was on that Contemporary-a-thon, and I'm happy that I wanted to pick it up because I've had this for quite a bit. I got this from Book Outlet a while ago, before all their drama happened, which I'm no longer supporting Book Outlet. I think I've said that on a couple of other videos. Until they change their policies, I'm not. I'm also currently no longer working as a Book of the Month affiliate because of their practices. I am keeping an eye out on their practices, and if it changes, I will probably keep supporting them, but I'm trying to be very, very cautious about who I do support. But yeah, this is one that I wound up liking, not loving, and I wound up giving it 3 stars. And the last book I'm going to chat about in this video was actually such a pleasant surprise, and that is From Twinkle with Love by Sanaya Manan. This came out 2 years ago, I think, at this point, and it was an Owl Crate book, but I wound up adoring this book. It was so fun. Basically, this book follows Twinkle, and she is a wannabe, she's a want-to-be director. So this whole book is basically set up as she's writing in her diary. So she's telling you the story through her diary, but she's writing these letters to famous female directors. And so you kind of get the whole story from her journal entries, and then there's some elements that are written in there's some point of views that you do get the other point of view, but it's very, very rare. But guys, this book was adorable. I just loved her point of view. I loved her relationship with Sunil. I just loved it. There was also twin brothers in this book, and I love twin dynamics in books a lot. But basically, these 2 characters wind up doing a movie together, and it was really, really well done. I was really invested. The end of this book almost made me cry. It was really, really good. Again, this is another book that really was focused on a culture that I am not that familiar with, but something that's what I like about reading, and I've said this before, I love learning about other cultures. This book was just so great. I struggled a little bit when Dimple met Rishi. This book was definitely a step up. I definitely want to get her other book that's coming out sooner, and the other one that came out last year, but I wound up liking it. I really did. I thought that the focus on the arts was something that I really could get behind. I love the elements of letter writing. I've always said that that's such a cool trope in books. And I just really, really like the romance. Like, he was a great character. Was thoroughly impressed with it, and I just liked their relationship. Also, there was an element of like a mystery admirer, which did not go the way I predicted at all, but that was actually totally fine. It was like a refreshing read. But yeah, I wound up giving this book like 4.75 stars. Wound up really enjoying it and definitely going to check out those other books by Sanaya Manon. But yeah, that's the end of this wrap up. If I had to choose my favorite books of the so far in this little wrap up, I would say some of my favorites were Majesty, Five Dark Fates, 4 Days of You and Me, and From Twinkle with Love. And my least favorites were How to Love and Say Yes Summer. Ooh, I missed one. Sorry. My notes got a little bit away from me. But I also did have to add Scavenge the Stars by Tara Sem. This was a book that I didn't love. It was an Owl Crate book for January. This is a Count of Monte Cristo retelling, and the pacing I really, really struggled with. I thought that it had solid representation. I liked the dual point of view, but the pacing I just could not get behind this book, and it took me a while to read it. But I did like the characters. I just struggled with the pacing. And I don't know anything about the Count of Monte Cristo in general, so maybe that made my buy-in like a little bit less. But again, I liked it, I didn't love it. So this is another one that I liked and didn't love. But you know what? That's okay. But, so those are all the books that the first half of this that I wound up reading. But yeah, let me know in the comments what are some of the books that you really liked and some of the books that you didn't like. And I'll be back later in the week for my second part of my wrap-up. Bye, guys. I hope you guys are being safe and being well. Bye.